real quick, Arizona. Buda Baker, really good. And then I look at their other guy, someone named Charles Washington. Great name. Honestly, never heard of him. So they have one half of an elite safety tandem, and I think the other two teams on the list have two good safeties. So Arizona, number 3.
Vish?
Yeah, Grant's been cheating off me. I don't know what he's been doing. He's seen my notes. I also have
How do you
Arizona
think I got
3.
into UCLA? Legitimately? You can't say stuff like that. People are going to come find me.
Grant, I thought you went to a Catholic private high school.
I did.
There was probably no cheating there.
Of course not. Everyone's in the honor system.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Obviously. But I also have Arizona 3. Buda Baker really is the only reason Arizona is relevant in this conversation. Not a big Deontay Thompson guy. Charles Washington, I guess. Maybe there's something there. Not sure. Big fan of Buda Baker. Think he's the best safety in this division by far. But I have him 3 because I think their secondary is very much lacking outside of him.
Okay. I guess I'm up, but I did want to put this out there. Thank you, Tommy. Grant is our dude too, so I guess we share that in common with you.
And thanks to Blake, man. Give Blake some props as well, man. Blake's a baller.
And
Tommy plays the guitar. I think you guys should know. Check it out, guys.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
appreciate the interview with John Chapman. He's an awesome dude. That was really fun.
Definitely check that out. Shout out John Chapman.
Shout out John Chapman.
Shout out.
Blake, I think this is where the disagreement happens.
Boom. You already know.
So I actually have the Niners here now.
At 3?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I have them at 3. Now, this is where it starts to get a little different here. So I think Jimmy Ward is great. I think Jaquiski Tartt is also great. I don't think they're bad in any way, shape, or form. I think 1 through 3 could be argued any which way, and you'd have a tough time making an argument over the others. But I'm going for the simple fact that I don't think either of these two are as good as, say, Jamal Adams or, say, Buda Baker. Now, that doesn't mean they're bad, and I think both of them are honestly underrated by the media a lot. Jaquiski Tartt can do a variety of things, and I know in 2017 he had a very, very elite season, and he's still been really good. And Jimmy Ward the same with, obviously being a man corner. And there's one game I wanted to bring up. Vish knows about this game. Grant, do you remember the 2018 Monday night game? Jimmy Ward was actually playing cornerback, but he got injured in the middle of it, and they were playing the Packers. And Greg Maben came in, and I think the rest of the game, Devontae Adams had at least 125 yards. It was
Aaron Rodgers played Where's Waldo with Greg Maben. Oh, Greg Maben's right here. We're throwing it to him. Do you remember this? This was CJ Beathard's. He was playing unbelievable until he underthrew a touchdown to Marquise Goodwin against cover 0, I think, on 3rd and 5.
He was so athletic. He would have caught him anyway. He's so good.
All he literally had to do was throw that ball to the end zone, and he underthrows it by like 15 yards, and Kevin King picks it off.
Oh, Kevin King, Fishboat out high school. Shout out. Shout out. All right, so the Niners number 3, man. Look, that's fair.
I like Buda Baker, and I think Jamal, he gets slandered a lot, and he gets overpraised a lot. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I don't know if he's an all-pro. I don't even know if he's a Pro Bowler, but I think he's right there. And, his coverage is lacking, but his run support is second, really, to not many people. And then, obviously, his blitzing, it kind of gets memed a lot. He gets called Blitz Boy. It is what it is, but he's versatile in that sense. And what is versatile also is the 49ers safeties. You can play them in a lot of different spots, but I basically have them a little lower just due to the fact that I wouldn't put either of Ward or Tartt in that top 5, top 8 conversation like I maybe would with Adams and certainly Buda Baker. But yeah, that's why that's my rationale at 3.
Grant, number 2, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Niners at number 2. No disrespect to Jaquiski Tartt or Jimmy Ward. I'm going to knock him down because Tartt needs to play a full season, man. Dude, I love you, man. I think you're a hell of a player, and I do think that you can do more than they've allowed you to show. Your ability in man-to-man coverage, fans have no idea. You're really good at it. You can play inside linebacker. You can play strong safety. You can play free safety. Hell of a player. Play the whole season, dude. And if you do that with Jimmy Ward, then you guys will be the number one tandem. But I can't give it now. Really like them both. Neither one is a playmaker, although maybe they could be if used differently. Jamal Adams is a playmaker. So I'm going to put the Niners at 2, but I'm not married to it, and I'm open-minded to someone want to say why they're the best.
Vish?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Seattle at 2, actually. And I think Blake is right in the sense that I actually think 1, 2, and 3 is close. And obviously, I think the reason I think the Cardinals fall off a little bit is just comes down to how special you think Buddha is. Obviously, I think Buddha is special. I think Grant thinks Buddha Baker is special. I know Blake thinks Buddha Baker is incredible. So that's why we think Arizona is closer to this conversation, because we all think he's a top 3 or 4 safety in the NFL. I think he's the best, to be totally honest with you. I think Buddha Baker is the best safety in the NFL. Wow. But I'll have Seattle number 2. I mean, you guys touched on Jamal Adams. Quandre Diggs is a very good player. He's very underrated. He's a very good single high safety. He's also a good split safety, and he does a really good job. And then Jamal Adams, the coverage of Jamal Adams and the perception of Jamal Adams is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. In New York, people said he's the best safety in the NFL. He does basically the same thing he did in New York. And now people are calling him overrated, overhyped, all of those things. Both of those things are not true. Jamal Adams was never the best safety in the NFL. Jamal Adams is also not overrated, overhyped. He is a really, really good football player. People need to stop saying, all he does is blitzes. I think he's a better blitzer than any other safety in the NFL. I think other safeties would have 7 sacks if they blitzed as much as him. I don't think they would have 12 sacks or 11 sacks the way he does. I think he's unbelievable. He's explosive. He has unbelievable timing with the snap count. He's really strong. He's a physical hitter. Does he get lost in space? Yes. Is he as bad in coverage as people want to say? No, it just depends on his usage. He can't do what Jimmy Ward does in man coverage. He can't do what Tart does in man coverage.
No.
He can't be a single high safety in cover 3, even though he has the range, because he gets lost in space. But there's still a lot of things he can do in coverage that we just didn't get to see last year because of the way Seattle structures its defense schematically and the amount they put on KJ Wright in particular. So,
when he's lurking around the line of scrimmage, man, I mean, offenses freak out. You got to account for him. You got to account for him. Yeah. It's the closest thing I've seen to Troy Polamalu since Troy Polamalu. He's not Troy Polamalu, but it's the closest. When Troy Polamalu was lurking at the line of scrimmage, like, damn, is he just going to jump over everybody? Like, what's going to happen?
He makes physically ridiculous plays. I think he's gotten to a point where he went from like a little overrated to now wildly underrated because people are acting like he isn't a great football player, which he is. So
it's because Seattle gave up 2 wins for him. That's why.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be
supposed to be a prime Ed Reed. Well, there's only one Ed Reed. That's why he's the greatest safety in the NFL. Right. Or Ronnie Lott.
He was never Ed Reed type player ever. No.
Blake?
Hey, Blake.
Yeah, my number 2 is going to be the Cardinals. I think this was kind of obvious. It's basically they're number 2 because Buddha Baker is that good. Buddha Baker's in that conversation as a top 3 safety. You know, I think this is one of those positions where kind of similar to cornerback, definitely similar to linebacker, where there's like 4 or 5 guys that you ask 5 different people and they'll give you a different guy. And that's because they're all just incredibly good. And Buddha Baker, I think, fits into that list of players that are just super talented at the safety position. And I think he really does hold down the Cardinals just secondary in general. Like, their corners aren't special. The guy next to him isn't special. And you wonder why they're, doing what they are doing. And a lot of it is just pointed at Buddha Baker. And he's the reason they're as good as they are. So I think that's why the Cardinals have the second best. As I mentioned previously, like, you could certainly argue the Niners, and I would have a tough time arguing. And you did bring up the thing with health too, Grant, that I didn't mention for the Niners that I kind of forgot to mention, but they've had a history of injuries, and you don't want to take it into a fact, right? Like, you want it to just be like, this is how skilled they are. But it does when you're ranking them, I guess, it can be a deciding factor. And that's another reason I have them at 3 in the Cardinals too, but it's mainly just due to how good Buddha Baker is and the type of athlete he is. So that's why I have the Cardinals at 2, but Grant, who is your number 1 safety duo in the NFC West?
I'm going with Seattle. Jamal Adams is not the best safety in the league, but he's excellent at what he does, and they use him the right way. And Quandre Diggs is a hell of a free safety. Both of them are playmakers. The Niners could end up this season. I think Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt absolutely could have a better combined performance this season than these two, but burden of proof's on them. They need to prove it. I'm going with Seattle for now.
That's fair. I think I have the Niners 1. I think health is a question mark. Absolutely right. I think Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward would tell you themselves that, Jimmy Ward has had the last 2 seasons staying healthy, and Jaquiski Tartt, I think it went from playing 13 to 14 games to
they're very self-aware. I like that about them. Yeah. They're very endearing, down to earth. Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt are the 2 of the most down to earth professional athletes I've ever met. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong on that, Vish?
No. Jaquiski Tartt, I mean, he did one of our first videos on this channel was literally doing an interview with Jaquiski Tartt. I had 0 following at the time. People weren't even really introduced to Blake besides the one time he came on with your channel, and he did it. So just one of the best people, right?
Yes.
But I mean, I don't even say that because he did that for me. I truly believe that these are the best safety duo in the NFL. And it's because I think it goes beyond just what they are as individual players. I think it's the way the 2 of them, like the chemistry of their duo, it's a little different from the other duos. And I think their versatility is what sets them apart. I think when you look at Diggs and Jamal Adams, you kind of have a defined set on where Jamal Adams is going to be, where Diggs is going to be. I think with the 49ers, you have the most versatile because they could be in a split safety alignment. You could have Ward over the slot. You could have Tartt over the slot. You could have Ward down as the 8th man in the box. You could have Tartt down as the 8th man in the box. Both have the range to be the post safety in a single high safety defense. So when you go through and you check every box of what they can do, they check every box. I think
they have the same skill set in different bodies, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. With Tartt maybe being a little bigger hitter and Ward being a little better, a little stickier in man coverage just because he's a smaller guy.
Exactly.
But they're both incredibly complete football players. And where I look at what's kind of gone wrong for them is, and this is where I think that maybe James Betcher's arrival can help, is I think that because the Niners have had such a dominant pass rush, they haven't looked to be overly creative with their safeties in the back end. You take a guy like Wink Martindale in Baltimore where they do all this exotic stuff and you give them 2 safeties that have 0 weakness to their football game, and you would be shocked of all the things Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward can do. You put them in a very safety-friendly scheme like Vic Fangio's scheme, you'd be shocked at the number of turnovers these guys can create. So for that reason, I have them as the number 1 safety duo because I think they complement each other the best out of everybody in this division. And I think the one thing that really sets them apart is that both of them, it's not like one has to hide the other's weakness. Both of them can be free-flowing to be either a strong safety or a nickel corner or a free safety or a will linebacker, just depending on how your defense kind of lines up, a big nickel, all those things. And because of that, I have them as the number 1 safety duo.
Blake, real quick, before we go, let's just stick with the Niners real quick. I want to say one thing. I think what you just said, a bunch of interesting stuff. And we talked about this earlier. It's not my idea. I'm stealing from Vish here. But Vish, you said this. I want to remind you what you said. I think it's really interesting.
Before you credit me, I do want to credit the guy I had a conversation with about this is Scott Gielan. So make sure you follow
Scott Gielan's a baller. Yeah, he's knows a lot. Defensive genius. Yes.
Right. He and I we had this conversation. And
not surprising.
He's the one who kind of put me onto this. So yeah.
So we've been talking about how Dre Greenlaw has limitations in coverage. He does. He's excellent first and second down linebacker, but on 3rd and 7, if the Niners want to put their best coverage group out there, that's Warner at middle linebacker, Tartt at inside linebacker, Ward at strong safety, Moore at free safety. It'd be interesting to see some like 3 safety dime packages because I think they'd be devastating. Anyway.
And I think the way they would cover in man coverage when you go between Warner, Ward, and Tartt, those are 3 of the Niners' best players in man, along with Verrett, where they could really do a lot of creative things. We'll see if they get that exotic. Robert Saleh showed glimpses of it last year, but he also stayed true to keeping his defense philosophically what it's been the last 4 years to make sure they're playing fast and playing hard and playing fast. So, Blake, without further ado, you're going to agree with Grant here. So why are Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs the best safety duo in the NFC West?
Yeah, so I'm with Grant on this one. Your 49ers argument is very compelling. I can't say it's not, but I still have faith in Jamal Adams. And I think you brought it up to the point, like both you guys did. Vish, you brought up the fact that people used to think of him as the number one safety, and maybe it's because he was on the Jets and putting up these, eye-popping numbers. And then he does get traded for 2 picks, and that's kind of like what he's compared to now. Like, he's worth 2 first-round picks. He's got Jalen Ramsey was traded for 2 first-round picks, and he's the best. And then you see Jamal get traded, and then maybe.
And Ramsey has no weaknesses. This guy has weaknesses. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the coverage is definitely a concern, but when you're as elite in the box as he is, it kind of helps make up for it. And yeah, you definitely need to play a certain way with him because maybe you don't want him covering, the best tight end, or you don't want him covering the slot receiver, but when you are able to get him to blitz, it's like, wow, this dude is like incredible. He's the best pass rusher on their team as a safety. I mean, that just says a lot about him as a player. And then think about him against the run, and he's incredible, obviously very instinctual. And then you guys mentioned it too, around the box, like you mentioned Troy Polamalu, and Jamal Adams is definitely not as good as Troy Polamalu, but he brings that same sense of fear that, like, what is he going to do? Because whatever he does is going to be special, and we are deeply concerned with what he's going to do, whether that's blitz or, go left, go right, go middle, whatever.
That's a good thing to say. I mean, like, I don't know how scientific it is, but just put each linebacker near the line of scrimmage and which one causes the most anxiety. I mean, it's Adams. Mm-hmm. Not that really, I don't know what that means. He should get like a 78.9 in terms of anxiety score from PFF. 0.9.
Just fear monger.
Yeah.
And I think that's real, though. Like, people don't realize, like, there's a reason broadcasts talk about Jamal Adams for 5 minutes, 10 minutes every single game. Now, it's a little nauseating to listen to because they keep waxing poetically about
You've heard it a million times. Yeah.
But it's because, one, obviously Seattle wants to boost him up, so they want him talked about during games because they gave up 2 first-round picks for him. But I'm sure opposing offensive coordinators are talking about him because Jamal Adams is an impactful football player. We've gone
and he's unique.
We've gone from basically overrating Jamal Adams to now acting like Jamal Adams is this like
fraud,
old, like just fraud. Like this horrible, like can't cover, can't move, stick in the mud safety who all he does.
You heard what Shanahan said about him the other day. I mean, he put him right in there with Jalen Ramsey. He was like, look, the Seahawks made a trade. The Rams made a trade. I hate facing those 2 players. It's truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. And the other guy I haven't even brought up, Quandre Diggs, great safety, free safety. And it's kind of hard filling in the shoes of Earl Thomas. I mean, he was, I would say, probably the best free safety in the league for a few years there. And him and Cam Chancellor were the best safety duo I think I've ever seen personally. And Cam, they both brought the hits, they both brought the coverage, and now they have Quandre Diggs replacing him, and I think he does a fine job. Obviously, he made the Pro Bowl last year, and he's maybe not Earl Thomas, but he's an incredible free safety.
It's like replacing Willie Mays in center field for the Giants. Like, hey, good luck.
Yeah,
good luck,
exactly.
Man. You got some big shoes to fill here.
But
he's doing a good job.
He really is, and I think as a secondary option, you could even argue he's maybe the best out of all these guys now. Arguing him over the Niners free safety Ward, you can go back and forth, but it's definitely a contest. And I think if he's your number 2, you're obviously doing very, very well with a safety duo. And that's why I have them at 1. But, as I've mentioned, I think 49ers in Seattle, you could debate them all day and still not find an answer. They're both really good, and the Cardinals are really good because of Buddha. So that's my list. Any more thoughts, guys?
No, I think that was go ahead.
I do have one more thought, and it's just because we've talked about him a little bit on the show, and I mentioned it earlier. I still believe, especially because people thought he could be a safety when he came out of the draft, that if Jalen Ramsey played free safety or strong safety, he would be the best safety in the NFL.
I have read that.
I think because his range would be like almost Earl Thomas like. His ball skills are top notch. He's a hitter. He's a terrific tackler. Takes great angles to the ball. I think we're watching one of the better DBs of all time, and we're just not realizing it because we don't like that he talks too much.
True. All right, should we